currently just past 6:30 a.m. in Perth, so early morning for me. But I'm here to tell you a little bit more about why Western Australia is a fantastic study destination, and more specifically about our university, which you can see a picture of on this first slide here. So the University of Western Australia, or UWA as we call it, is one of the top 100 world universities by QS and AWRU rankings, and we are part of the Group of 8 Australia. The Group of 8 is similar to the Ivy League or the Russell Group, which is Australia's 8 most prestigious research-driven institutions. And just to put it in context, there are 43 universities in Australia. Okay, so firstly, where is Western Australia? So Perth is certainly not the place that most students think of when they're considering studying abroad. If they're looking at Australia, they're most likely familiar with Sydney, with Melbourne, perhaps Brisbane. But as you can see on the map, we're way over on the west coast here, but we do say the west coast is the best coast. It's a very, very unique study destination. And it's a very exciting and thriving city with plenty to do, which I'll talk about in a moment. But this is just to give you some perspective about where we are and also about how big our state is. So you can see that it's in Western Australia, which is almost a third of the entire of Australia. So it's absolutely huge. Western Australia is the state and Perth is our capital. So I'll tell you a little bit about Perth and WA, the university, courses, fees and scholarships, entry requirements, post-study work rights, which is very generous right now, and accommodation. So firstly, more about Perth. It is a modern, very clean, very green city with a lot of investment right now. It's the fastest growing city in Australia. As you can see by the picture, we are surrounded by water. So on one side, we have the Indian Ocean. On the other side, we've got this beautiful Swan River. So it is quite hot in Australia, but we do get a lot of cool breezes living by the water. But generally speaking, the temperature, if I can use Celsius, I hope you're familiar, it would be up to about 35 degrees usually in the summer Celsius, and down to a low of about 16 degrees Celsius during the winter. So certainly not as harsh as Canadian winters, which I've experienced many times. So more of a temperate, what we would call Mediterranean climate. And that leads to a lot of outdoor activity and a really great lifestyle, meaning that you can be outdoors most of the year. So we have on average 8 hours of sunshine per year, even through the winter months. A few great things about living on the West Coast. Firstly, it is much more affordable overall than the East Coast cities. So if you're looking at cost of living, it's significantly cheaper than Melbourne, Sydney, or Brisbane. But on the other hand, the average wages for people living in Perth are 9% above the national average. So you would earn more, but it would cost less to live here. We're the only state that has free schooling for children of international postgraduate students. So if you are considering relocating with your family and you do have children, you would get a very good deal here whereby your children can go to school in the state education system for free through primary and secondary school. We are consistently voted in the top most livable cities in the world, most recently number 12, and that's at looking things like healthcare infrastructure, transport, clean air, all of those things that just make it a nice, easy, lovely place to live. We do have one of the best performing economies in the world right now. So we are like the backbone of the Australian economy. One of our major industries is the mining and resource industry, and that in itself brings a lot of investment, a lot of big companies starting up in Perth. A third of Australia's stock exchange listed companies are actually located in our city. We offer at the moment up to 6 years of working visa to students who are studying in Perth. Okay, so it's very generous, the amount of time you can stay and work, get some experience, pay back your tuition fees, etc. The city itself is around 2.4 million people right now, so not dissimilar to some of the larger cities in Canada. As I said, the cost of living is very significantly cheaper, as you can see by this cost of living analysis done by Deloitte in 2022 last year. It's 24% lower in cost than Sydney, 19% lower than Brisbane, and 10% lower than Melbourne. So if you can imagine that you're staying for 2, 3, 4 years to study and then potentially working, that really does add up. It's a very safe, friendly, and welcoming city. So 37% of the population, myself included, were born overseas. So 1 in every 3 people that you will come across in Perth will be from a different country originally. 190 nationalities in total, and over 270 languages spoken. This is just a few pictures of around the city. The top left is Cottesloe Beach. We would call that often UWA Beach because it's 10 minutes from our campus. It's always filled by UWA students enjoying a barbecue or playing some volleyball, etc., after their classes finish. Top right is Northbridge, which is our cultural precinct. They'll often put a big screen on in the summer and create a giant sand pit, and you can sit around and watch the free movies they have each evening. Bottom right is Kings Park. Fun fact, larger than Central Park in New York, and a really great place to watch the sunrise and sunset over the city and over the river. Also home to a lot of events, music festivals, etc. So within half an hour of Perth, you can also get to some pretty cool destinations. So one of them being the Swan Valley, which is our food and wine hub. So we have very famous wine regions around Perth, and also home to like artisan chocolate, honey making, fresh fruit and produce, all situated within 25 minutes from Perth. Optus Stadium is a very beautiful sporting facility, quite a new facility. I think it was opened in 2019, but we haven't had all the use during COVID, of course. But we have some really great bands performing here. We had actually the Foo Fighters just last night, home to also some great sporting events. We've had Man United come and play. We do a lot of things here. It's a really great experience. Definitely you can check out some AFL or other Australian sports as well. And Rottnest Island, which is just a short ferry ride from Perth and is where we in Perth like to go just to chill out for the weekend or the day. It has 63 beaches. You can't drive a car there. You must walk or cycle or swim or sail. It's a really gorgeous place, and it's home to our little quokkas, which are famous little marsupials. They only live in Rottnest Island. They're very cute and very friendly. And the thing to do in Rottnest, as you can see by Matt Damon and Roger Federer, is to get a quokka selfie while you're there. So this is a really fabulous place, a bit of a hidden gem. Because the state, as I said, is so large, there's also plenty to see and do around Western Australia. So if you're going down south, you might visit Margaret River, very famous destination for wine, for surfing, for fabulous beaches. So definitely get your Instagram ready. Going up north, the landscape changes completely, and you'll see things like the Pinnacles, which are these fabulous rocky outcrops looking like a science fiction movie, and to see them under the Milky Way at night under all the stars is pretty amazing. And also home to a lot of national parks, hiking trails, waterfalls, things like this. So just a couple more pictures. There is plenty to see and do, as you can imagine. Swimming with whale sharks, it's one of the only places to do that in the world. Riding camels on the beach. We do have one of the highest wild camel populations in the world, and it's a great place to see the Indian Ocean sunset. Do a treetop walk across the top of the forests. Take a photo with a kangaroo on a beach in Lucky Bay. This is consistently voted the world's best beach, not just Australia's, but the world's. It's got squeaky clean sand. It's absolutely stunning. And a little bit about now the university. So, like I said, we are top 100 ranked. We're number 72 in the world according to the QS, which is the most common rankings. And with that comes obviously very good teaching quality. So we have 5 stars for teaching quality. Um, and we have more than 4,500 global industry partnerships. So those partnerships mean that we have students um, learning by the absolute best teachers, the leaders in their field. We have our curriculum checked and fed back on by industry leaders so that we make sure we're teaching the most up-to-date information to our students. And this is also handy when it comes to partnerships, internships, work placements, that kind of thing. So we can offer a huge range to our students due to our partnerships. We're number 1 in Western Australia for graduate employability. And that's obviously means that our graduates are going to really great jobs with really great salaries and are often recruited in school time already by the recruiters and the big companies based in Perth as well. We are what we would call a comprehensive university, meaning that our disciplines range everything across from architecture to health and medical, business, humanities, engineering, the sciences, etc. So very comprehensive, but there are some particular areas where we're very well ranked. So just to pull out a few, we're number 1 in Australia for agriculture and environmental science and biological sciences, number 2 for mining engineering, anatomy and physiology, earth and marine sciences and geology, and number 3 for clinical medicine. So all of these areas are very, very strong with the best teachers in Australia on the courses. When it comes to degrees, we have undergraduate, postgraduate programs, and we also have PhDs as well, which falls under postgraduate programs. So if you're looking for research only, we can cater for this. Undergraduate ranges from 3 years. That's a standard, like say Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science. Then we have specialized degrees, which may be something like psychology or education or engineering, where you're studying a very particular specialized field. You can also look at combined bachelor master's degrees. So these are fantastic for students that are high achieving and want to do a postgraduate program. You can actually take both in 4 years with UWA with a lot of options. The fees range from 35 to 45,000 Australian dollars per year. The Canadian and Australian dollar used to be fairly equal. Unfortunately for us, but fortunately for you, our dollar has weakened, meaning that you would be getting your education at a cheaper rate than for the last few years. So that's good for you guys. Postgraduate ranges from 33 to 85,000. 85 is the top of the range for things like medicine and dentistry. For most courses, for postgraduate, you'd be looking more around the $40,000 to $45,000. And we have masters by coursework, which are 2 years, masters by coursework and research combined, which are 2 years. So some of the differences between either the Australian and Canadian or USA system are that the duration for undergraduate degrees is usually just 3 years, sometimes 4. And for postgraduate master's degrees, it's pretty much always 2 years. So whereas I think in many other countries, you'd be looking at 4 years plus a 1-year master's, for us, it's usually 3 years plus 2 years. So in the end, the duration is much the same, but we put more focus on the postgraduate side of things. There's also a larger focus just on the academic background. So when you're making an application, we really just looking at your academic results, make sure that you meet the English language requirement and any subject prerequisites. We very rarely would have a course that requires you to give us a reference letter or a letter of support or details about extracurriculars. It's pretty much just focused on academics, which I know can be quite a different process for students used to the Canadian or the US system. In terms of scholarships, we have some scholarships on offer for both undergraduate and postgraduate students. They do exclude our quoted courses like medicine, dentistry, and law, but otherwise, all of the other courses which I have just mentioned would be included. These are automatic discounts for students based on their achievements in either high school or university. So, as an example, if you're doing the OSSD in Toronto or somewhere else in Ontario, and you were to get 80 as a combined average across your 5 subjects, your top 5 subjects, you'd be looking at $10,000 per year discount on your tuition fees. So over a course of 4 years, that would be $40,000 in total discount. That's automatically taken into consideration when we receive your application. So you don't need to make a separate application. We will automatically assess the entitlement for your scholarship. For postgraduate courses, it works in much the same way, whereas we have 3 bands of scholarship, $6,000, $10,000, and $12,000 per year off your course. And we would, instead of your high school results, we would look at the GPA on the whatever scale we're using and to determine your amount off. We did survey our students to see why they loved UWA recently. Some top reasons were the campus, which you can see is absolutely in an amazing location on the banks of the Swan River, just 10 minutes from the city centre. The residential colleges where you would live are also on the campus itself. And it's just a very beautiful grounds, old buildings, amazing landscaped gardens, great facilities such as swimming pool, gym, supermarket, everything that you would need in one village inside the campus. Getting from the city centre to the campus is along the river path here, and you'll often see dolphins, pelicans, etc. on your commute, which is a pretty nice way to start the day, I've got to say. Within the campus is a lot of very modern facilities. So we have, for example, an E zone, which is the engineering zone, which was built and opened only a couple of years ago, which was a multi-million-dollar investment for the university. We have the largest trading room in the Southern Hemisphere for our for our finance, I should say, students. A moot court, which is a real life practicing mock court for our students, and fantastic labs for those studying sciences or health areas as well. Student life was voted as number 2 for our students, and that encompasses everything from our support services that we offer right from the start when you've accepted your offer at the university and you're set up with a mentor who's based in Perth. So you've already got a line of communication with a current student who's doing a similar course to you that's gone through the transition of studying overseas to studying in Perth. We have a huge host of student events, sporting clubs, volunteering, which we strongly encourage. So one of the most active student guild or student associations in Australia, in fact. We also are very well known for our career opportunities and the fantastic work that our Career Centre does in terms of things like offering services like interview and resume writing practice, providing internships, access to part-time and graduate jobs, job fairs, setting students up with career mentors that they can meet with regularly to get real-life career guidance, and something called a Career and Employability Award, which is unique to our university, which has a bunch of steps you go through in order to meet the requirements to get this award. So it might be like doing a certain amount of internship hours, doing a certain amount of workshops, getting a certain amount of experience in the careers field that you're interested in, and then you get given this award, which just showcases your employability skills at the end. Just a quick example for students taking mining engineering. This was some of the events that we did over the course of 2 months at UWA for students. So it's a very small spotlight just on mining engineering, but this is happening for all of our courses. So just to show you the amount of things like networking events, guest speaker events, vacation work expos, networking lunch, open days, etc., that students would get invited to. Okay, and this is all down to the UWA and the student associations. All right, now on to entry requirements. If we're looking at undergraduate entry, so this is for high school students in Canada, we can accept any student who's doing IB or A levels or doing their Canadian high school diploma through any of the provinces or territories. And we can also accept the SATs along with the US high school diploma. We also accept ACT and AP. So there's a really broad range of qualifications we accept depending on the curriculum you're studying at high school. What we generally also look for is that you've passed English as part of your high school, and that you've also met any subject prerequisites. So, for example, if you're studying engineering, there's a certain level of maths that you would need that you can satisfy through your, for example, your Canadian high school diploma maths unit. If we're looking at masters by coursework, what we would look for is a pass mark in certain cases from your university, but the requirement can be higher than that depending on the course. So 50% pass is the lowest end for our courses, but it would go up depending on what you're studying. For students looking for PhD or research, we are looking at your weighted average mark from your university degree and evidence of prior research. So we would require you to have some significant research experience, whether that's a dissertation or thesis that you've already completed or a published article, etc. For English language, if you're from a English language speaking school or university, we can usually accept that through your high school or your previous university study, but we also accept the regular tests like IELTS Academic, TOEFL, Pearson's, etc. The university year is different to what you may be used to in that we have 2 semesters. Usually students can start in either one of the two, and they start in February and July. So unlike in the Northern Hemisphere where the main intake is in September, our main intake is February, which is the summertime for us. So the large summer break for our student is mid-November to the end of February, and that's when you would be able to go home, do a bit of travel, etc. Okay, post-study work visa. This is really important because there has been quite a few changes to this over the last few years. So I'm hoping to sort of break it down for you a little bit here. So if you're studying a bachelor's degree, in any city in Australia, you are automatically awarded a 2-year working visa once you complete your study. If you're studying a master's degree, you're automatically awarded a 3-year working visa after you complete your study. So that's non-dependent on wherever you're studying, whether that's Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, etc. However, in Perth, if you study here and work here, you also get entitled to 1 additional year of post-study work visa. Okay. Then we have something called the visa extension. This is mainly for STEM courses, so science, technology, engineering, and maths. And this allows a further 2 years to your visa, depending on the course that you've studied. So essentially, a bachelor's degree student can take opportunity up to 5 years to stay and work, and a master's degree up to 6 years. So it does depend on the course you're studying, but it's a very generous offering at the moment by the Australian government, the main reason to fill the study gaps that we have in areas of shortage. You can work part-time during your study, so that's 48 hours a fortnight, and you can work full-time during semester breaks. So that's in that large summer break, for example. There's no restrictions to work, so it doesn't have to be on campus or off campus. It doesn't have to be with any certain employer. It's completely up to you, and our job centre can help you to find those jobs as well. We do recommend you living costs to be around $500 to $550 a week, which does include your accommodation. And accommodation can be on or off campus, depending on your personal situation. So if you're living on campus, I would say this is the best option if you're transitioning to Perth, because You will be living with a lot of other international students that have come from different countries, and they're all finding their way, as well as with a lot of Australian students that have come from our more remote or regional areas to study in the city, or come from the eastern states to Perth to study as well. So there's 5 colleges in a row. They're all very friendly. They do a lot of social events, sporting events together, but they all have a slightly different feel and a different atmosphere. So you can absolutely choose which one is the best fit for you. They do include all of the extras like meals, the Wi-Fi, the bills, the room is cleaned regularly. So you don't really need too much extra money than what you've paid on your residential fees, because everything's included. Plus, you can walk to campus. Plus, something I didn't mention is that the bus to campus from the city is free, and all of the city centre buses are also free of charge for everyone, not just for students. So that's a really also another great thing about Perth. So your living costs aside from your residential college can be quite minimal. If you choose to live in the city centre, it is cheaper because it doesn't include your meals. So you would have to do your own cooking and share some other facilities, but that can be from close to $200 per week. If you've got friends that are here, or you've got a family that you're relocating with, we can also look at private rentals, etc., for you. And we have a accommodation office that can help you with those. Okay, I'm just going to end there to allow time for any questions. I think I've just come in under my 30 minutes, which is good. And if not, then you can send any questions to the booth or register your name, and I'll get back to you, and we can have a conversation by email as well. Okay, I've just got a couple of questions in the chat here. So what's the cost of living in Perth like compared to Canada? I've personally, I travel to Canada usually 2 or 3 times a year. I would say Perth is probably a little bit cheaper than certainly the cities I've visited, which is mainly Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, in terms of like meals and things like that. One of the reasons I find is that we don't have the same culture of sort of taxes and tip on top of everything else. So if you go for a meal, it's I think it's a fair bit cheaper, or getting a takeaway coffee is definitely cheaper, things like that. And yeah, I would say in other ways, things like shopping for groceries, it's probably quite comparable. So I don't think you'd find it a huge difference coming from Canada. I think that you might find it a little bit cheaper. And the fact that we have the free public transport within the city is a great bonus as well. So shouldn't be too much of a shock. The minimum wage, I believe, for doing any kind of work, however, would be more. So for doing a similar amount of work, I think you would earn more in Australia and probably be a little bit better off in that sense. All right, how many Canadian students do we have? So Canadian students make up a pretty small amount of our student base. We are an extremely diverse community of students, so we're not hugely reliant on any one country for sending students from international, and we purposefully want a diverse student mix for our classes. The majority of Canadian students are coming over to do either a study abroad semester, or usually coming over to do something in the health sciences. So you will find in those areas there may be a few more Canadian students, but certainly not in comparison to the other countries. So you'll find it a very diverse mix of students at UWA. Okay, student life at UWA. Uh, like I said, we have an extremely active student guild. So that means that the student life is a lot of fun. We have something called O Week, or Orientation Week, at the start of the semester, which allows you to meet like-minded students and connect with clubs and societies. So we have 180 plus clubs. So whatever your interest is, whether it's a cultural club, sporting, music, anything like that, you can join. We have a lot of excursions for international students, so you can see the sites. And it's a really fun place to connect with other people. So there's a lot going on. We just really encourage you to take an opportunity to be involved in it. So you've got to put yourself out there as well, and sign up to the club, sign up to the events and excursions that we're doing. But I think you'll have a really fun time as an international student. Um, Also, a lot of field trips that you would take involved in the classes that we offer as well, which allows you to get some really great overseas experience, as well as experiences within like rural or urban Australia as well. Cost of living I have covered. Is there any support or resources to help Canadians get used to the Australian academic system? Sure. So there's no specific resources just for Canadian students, but there are resources throughout our student support centre for all students. So it could be that you start your course and you're not necessarily um, too clued up on how we do, like, I don't know, academic research or something like that in Australia, or how the system is. Then you can go and speak to a student support officer, or you can take one of the many workshops that we run for free on things to help areas to help international students adjust to the Australian system. There is also a unit that every student must take before you start your course, which is just an online unit which tells you how to get familiar with the Australian system, and like ethics and things like that, and communication essentials. So that should get you started well, but there's also a lot of support if you're having any issues. In courses where we do have more international students from Canada, so for example, in our medicine course or dentistry course, we also do have specific student support leaders who will come in. So, for example, the subdean of medicine individually will sit down and get to know every single medicine student to make sure that they are on track, that they've got any issues that can be addressed, and that kind of thing. So, a really huge amount of international support. Anytime that we see a student, Canadian or otherwise, or Australian, who is struggling, our university staff will step in and have a chat to that student and offer support services, because the last thing we want to do is see anyone having a poor time, or starting to get behind on their workload. Are there any graduate courses for nursing and other health science courses? We don't offer nursing, unfortunately. That's one of the courses we don't offer, but we do offer other health science courses. So, for example, public health with a variety of different specializations. Infectious diseases is another one, and social work, biomedical science, biotechnology. So a few other areas you can look at apart from nursing. And yes, as I mentioned, you can work as a student, so part-time work in 48 hours per fortnight, which is 24 hours a week roughly, and full-time during semester breaks. So absolutely you can work with no restrictions, like I said. Okay, I think that's probably all of the questions answered, unless there's any more coming through. Nope. Okay, well, do jump onto the UWA booth. I may not be there for the entire time, but I will definitely get back to you and answer any questions. If you want to connect with me, then I'll send you some information. There's also brochures to download, some information specifically for North American students, including some more about those scholarships, which I mentioned as well. So the scholarships brochure, which I've got on my booth, is just for Canadian students, but these scholarships are actually global. So if you're actually a different nationality than Canadian or from the US, then you can still access the scholarships. But depending on where you graduated from for high school or university, the marking system may just be slightly different. So you can get in touch with me about that if you're in that situation as well. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up then. Thank you for attending. I hope that provided you with some good insights about the University of Western Australia, and hope to hear from you. Have a nice